All right, y'all. What's up? What's good? What's good? Welcome in. Good to see
Hi, Andy.
everybody. Hello. Who was
I'm
that,
trying to
Sarah?
get I'm trying to get everything inside these between the cats and the dog.
Herding cats, huh?
Yes, and they had babies, so it's really crazy.
Oh my God.
I've never had to deal with that. And the guy told me, the cat's gonna be in here soon. And
Oh,
I'm like, yeah. So then the cat goes after the dog because of the babies, and it's like, oh my God.
did you hear the freaking screaming going on
Yes,
outside?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Lord help us. Goodness. Well, that's the beauty of life, huh?
Come on, let's go. You gotta get away from the dog.
Getting everybody
There we
on the
go.
screen now that can be. Like I said, good to see everybody. Hope you're having a nice Thursday morning thus far. Who's got the day off today? Oh, you lucky sons of guns. You got a crazy week that I'm in the middle of, and it just
I gotta
continues.
get I gotta get ready here soon and go to my son's little graduation thing for school.
Yeah, it's that whole season, right? I got a dance recital on Saturday. Not myself personally, I should say. My daughter does. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so we got
man.
everybody in. Good to see. Relatively
Yeah.
smoothly this time, too.
Yes, because you've been stressing trying to get everybody on.
Yeah, but you know what? Everybody who has been having trouble has been proactive about communicating, which I appreciate because it allows us to get the problems addressed well before group time.
Yes, yes, sir.
Oh, of course, I spoke too soon. We are missing one person. So, how's everybody doing? Did you guys see the question of the day, question of the week? Did you guys hear the song of the week and see the question of the day?
What's your favorite movie?
I
No,
don't
favorite
watch
TV
TV
show. What's the
show.
best TV? Not your favorite. What's the best TV show of all time?
Best TV show?
The best TV show of all time. I think Josina already knows what my answer is to
This
that question.
the, the Simpsons.
What?
You said The Sopranos.
The Sopranos. Thank you. Jim was actually listening. There is there is no competition in my mind.
I don't know. I think MASH was pretty good.
You know what? I did enjoy watching MASH with my grandfather as a kid, but I haven't seen it in years, if I'm being honest. Who else got a favorite TV show? What's the best TV show ever?
All right, I'm showing my age, and nobody's heard of it, but
Uh-oh.
it's a real home that down to earth family values family, important in life, and nobody's heard of it. Don't laugh. Mayberry RFD.
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? Love anything in the Andy Griffith universe. Did
Mine is
I have
mine is Gilligan's Island.
is it really?
It makes you really appreciate life when you're stuck on an island, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. You're stuck out there with a professor who can make a radio out of a coconut, but he can't fix a goddamn boat, huh? Jose. Who remembers what we talked about last week, I wonder?
Hey, come on.
Nobody?
I do.
Yeah. Whoever that
I
was.
remember I remember the ABCs,
Yes.
and I remember when you're
Yeah.
going to a bad spot, that bad place,
Hmm.
and it's in the back of your brain, right back here. And you need to move that to the front where your logic is, where you can
Mm.
think. So you stop and you count to 10 and let that bad focus subside into some part of your brain that has logic. And that
Yes.
logical brain will help you stop focusing on that negative over here, where now you can actually focus your attention on something positive. And when you go in the
Ah.
positive direction, then your focus becomes that. And when you have that positive energy, then that energy is going to bring forth wherever you step your feet. It's going to attune to the way you're going to handle your day, how your day is going to go. So last week was absolutely fantastic based on that curriculum and the thoughts and the understanding of that. And I really feel like that's something that can help anybody on the
Yeah.
planet.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yes.
Does that ring a
I feel
bell for most of y'all? Anybody want to add
Yes.
anything
Yeah.
to what happened last week, our conversation last week?
No, activating event, belief, and the choice or consequence. Beautiful.
Ah,
Yeah.
God. God bless you. I don't know if maybe you just Googled it, but thank you.
No, no, no. Wrote it down.
kind of
Wrote
like almost like what were like the triggers, like what would like.
Oh yeah,
I
Mr.
feel.
Rivera, I don't think you were in with us last Thursday,
Andy,
were
I
you?
can't hear anything.
Oh no. Oh, then I'm talking about last time I was there. My bad.
Can everybody else hear?
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right, so I don't know what's going on with that, but you'll have to get that figured. Um, Yeah. So Josine, you were talking about triggers. Yeah. So triggers essentially can almost stand in for that A that was just mentioned as far as activating event, right? Something
Mhm.
has to cue me in order for me to have a reaction. And some of this stuff may sound like almost stupidly simple when I say it out loud, guys, but we are so often like just getting up and going and running on these automatic systems, right? That it actually is worthwhile to take a step back and to try to identify and kind of enunciate what is actually happening in the process. Because if we can try to get a little space between the stuff just happening, having the emotion or the reaction, and letting it dictate our choices, if we can get a little bit of a pause in that cycle, then maybe we can have, again, we can give ourselves a better chance to make a better choice, right? That's the idea behind all of this. So again, I know it may sound almost surprisingly simple, but kind of the basics of this is that we have feelings which often dictate our choices and our behaviors, our responses, our moods, the person that we actually are. And a lot of times those feelings are based on what we believe about what's going on. So again, super simple, right? But I have thoughts. Those thoughts generate feelings, and a lot of times those feelings will then dictate my choices. So that ABC, A is the activating event, right? I think we mentioned last week. You get a dirty look from a coworker. B is I have some kind of belief about this, right? I believe that she gave me that dirty look intentionally because she has some kind of beef with me. And then C are the choices and the consequences that follow that I make based on that belief. And that belief can oftentimes be very, very wrong, right? But these are a lot of times the processes which are dictating how my life goes on a day-to-day basis. So, just real quick, y'all, trying to get a couple people back into this. All right. I think at this point we have everybody who's going to be
Hey,
joining.
Andy, I'm getting an error message on my camera.
Who is that?
Michael Weaver?
Okay, well, I know you're in here, Mike, so
Yeah.
you're still obviously able to participate if you want to
Yeah.
in the discussion. So just go ahead and
Yeah.
do that and pay
Okay.
attention. You'll be all
Yeah.
right.
Appreciate it.
Before we go any further, guys, I just want to make sure everybody in here is aware as far as drug tests this week. I needed Rachel to get in there. I needed Joe to get in there, Benedict, and Mr. Boynton, if you're in here. All right. So, and just maybe I don't do this often enough. Just so you guys are aware of kind of how this works, right? You guys are all in this program, so we can, for most of you, show that you have been in what we call at least early remission from some kind of a substance use disorder. So if you're in here for your license, right, they want to make sure that before they let you get back on the road, that whatever problems you may have had with a potential substance use disorder, we can rule that out and say you're safely okay to return to the road, right? Early remission from a substance use disorder is defined as 12 weeks of abstinence. Now, of course, I'd love to just look you guys in the eye and have you promise me you're staying clean and sober, right? But they're not going to accept our word for that medically. So we have to have drug tests that verify you are remaining abstinent from illicit drugs and alcohol. So if you are in this program, you are expected to be clean and sober. Unless you have a prescription for something, you are not supposed to be taking anything, illicit into your system. You are going to receive drug test emails Wednesday morning if you are in this Thursday group that tell you need to come in this week for a drug screen. You have until the end of the next business day, so the end of Thursday's business, like 5 o'clock basically, to get into either our Brooksville, Zephyr Hills, or Newport Richey location for your observed drug screen. If you tell me that you did not see the email Wednesday morning and missed your drug screen as a result, it's going to be treated as like a failed drug screen, okay? Two failed drug screens will get you non-compliant discharged from our program, and it would kind of indicate to me that you probably need a higher level of care. Maybe outpatient is not appropriate for you at this point. So keep in mind, if you're in this program, if you're in a substance abuse program with us, you are required to go to one AA or NA meeting per week. And when you came in for your assessment, you should have received a sheet that has spaces for you to get signatures for when you go to your AA, your NA, your Smart Recovery, your Celebrate Recovery, whatever your sober support meeting is. But you are expected to go to one of those per week. So if you got like 16 weeks recommended of treatment, you need to have 16 signatures verifying you went to those meetings by the time you're done. If you don't have one of those sign-in sheets, you need to let me know. But you guys also need to make sure that you're checking your emails Wednesday morning to see if you are asked to come in for a drug screen that week. Mr. Obasi, yes.
Yeah, so what if you have to travel for work? Because right now I'm not in town. So what if I have to travel for work? I got the email yesterday morning. I tried calling you, but I wasn't able to reach you. I'll be back on Sunday. I could do it first thing on Monday if that's okay with you, but I don't know how that works.
Let me get with you afterwards. Where are you, Ben?
Right now I'm in South Carolina.
Okay.
I'll be back because I just have to do a quick trip and back.
Okay. Because our out-of-town people, normally we just have them go to like a Quest lab or whatever, one of those drug testing labs.
Yeah. Yeah, I might be back either today or Sunday because depending on my passenger, it depends on what he wants because he's saying either today, tomorrow, or Saturday. So if I'm back
Okay.
today, I can before 5, I can go and get it done. If not, just let me know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll get with you. We might just have to have you go into a lab wherever you are, but that's not a big deal. Like I said, I'll give you a call after
All right,
group. Everybody
all
else
right,
is
sounds good.
good, understands any issues that they need to bring up at this time. Okay. All right. So, like I said, if you need to follow up with me and get an AA sign-in sheet, just shoot me an email and I will send you one after group. But anyways, like we were saying, okay, so we have, yes, Mr. Guerrero, what's up?
Just what if the email didn't come through? Like today, I didn't never get receive the link, so I was looking for it everywhere, spam, trash, whatever. So I don't know if it was because I didn't get sent or because I just couldn't find it.
Yeah, I'll make sure with yours specifically, you haven't missed one yet, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
All right,
But
thank
yeah, I can reach out because I know that there's been a problem for whatever reason with your email address.
you. All
Um,
right,
so I'll make sure that you are aware when they come up. But I'll try to bring those up in group, guys, like I just did today to make sure that nobody misses for something like that.
Andy,
Mine,
Yes.
can I speak to you really fast?
As long as you're okay with it being in front of the group.
Yeah, that's fine. So when I got into my car accident and I was assigned to come see you, did that count or was I just got extended the 4 weeks, correct?
You did, yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't count for two.
Um, well, it shouldn't matter, Rachel, right? Because if you don't fail another test, it's not gonna matter, right?
Not
You
okay,
nervous
so
about that second one?
well, I do want to speak to you after the class. I do want to talk to you.
All right, that probably sounds like a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
um, and
Yeah.
um, I forgot what I was gonna ask you. Oh
Was
yeah,
it?
with my teams. Um, yeah, because I know I got an issue with my email, so I don't know if whenever mines pop up, but you said that you'll usually tell us in the group.
Don't you come in person sometimes, Josine?
Right. That's what I was trying to figure out too.
No,
Because I
yeah.
just
Because
finished
you
telling
come
you
in
last week.
person, you're not going to get emails from me about your drug screens.
Okay, perfect.
Anybody who splits time between virtual and in person, you're going to get tested whenever you just go in person for your groups.
All right, perfect.
Yeah. All right. That's it, right? Okay. Okay, so back to the conversation. We were talking, and again, just so you guys are aware, this is what we're talking about is basically the basics of cognitive behavioral therapy. So the idea kind of is if I can change my thoughts and I can change my actions, right? I can change my outcomes. And cognitive behavioral therapy is kind of the process of how we look into how do we actually do that. So again, first thing is kind of recognizing that a lot of times I can be sort of run by these automatic processes that I'm not even aware is happening. And that ABC thing that we've been talking about is like an automatic loop that happens when I'm not even aware of it. Same thing with a relapse trigger, for instance. When I, you know, when I hear a song that I associate with using or drinking, and it creates that trigger within me that makes me feel like returning to that neural pathway that's associated with that cue, which for me would be using in that situation, right? It's not something that I'm choosing. It's something that happens automatically. And
Mm,
this is the case for a lot of the mental processes that dictate our day. And that is because our brains, like we were saying, are very efficient at doing what they do. We like to our brains like to figure things out and almost essentially form a muscle memory for the experiences and the associations that it has encountered before. So, I don't have to relearn every single time that uh, let's say I'm allergic to strawberries and I have some strawberries and I violently break out and it's a terrible experience. My brain remembers that and I now associate strawberries with feeling bad, right? And we can all obviously see how it's very useful for the brain to retain that information and to kind of make us feel it vividly so I don't have to relearn it every single time and go through this torture because I keep picking up strawberries thinking they're going to be a great time for me, right? Now, as we have said, the entire script gets flipped when we are talking about the associations that spring up around substance use. Because it should be that when I take something like methamphetamine into my system, it's highly toxic. It's a very unhealthy thing for me to be doing. A lot of times it makes my life and my relationships measurably worse. It should be the kind of thing that my brain forms a negative association with. But substances turn it all on its head because the chemical hooks release dopamine, which our brain associates with survival and health and things that we should be pursuing. And so, let's say I get into a situation in which I'm feeling fearful or I'm feeling stressed out. My amygdala is activated. The survival part of my brain goes into alert mode. And my brain has developed this association of alcohol with at least temporary relief from stress and anxiety, right? And because the survival mechanisms of our brain and the emotional centers of our brain are powerful, um, that feeling to me that I will need to take a drink or a drug in a situation in which I'm feeling stressed or threatened, that can become a very overwhelming association. Because to my brain, it is almost like it's essentially has the strength of something that's going to keep me alive. My brain is basically being tricked into thinking that I need this for my survival. So when we are really in the depths and in the throes of our addiction in a bad chronic way, right? That is such an overwhelming trigger for us. And it can be something that becomes our response to almost any emotion. I think we had discussed that last week. When I was really bad in my cups and using, I would drink because I was stressed. I would drink because I was anxious. I would drink because I was celebrating. I would drink because I was bored. Anything, right? And so maybe for you guys, you have associated, and you can identify that you have associated um, a substance response sort of as your coping mechanism that you use in order to sort of soothe yourself anytime your beliefs about something are telling you that you're threatened or feeling anxious or yada yada. But kind of like Matthew was saying, it's not necessarily something that's limited just to substances. There's all kinds of what we call maladaptive coping mechanisms that people employ in response to adversity or to adverse emotions. So, having said all that, what can we do about it? It's again, it's really good. It's the very essential first step that I recognize that this entire thing is happening to me, that I'm experiencing or encountering something. I have all these biases, prejudices, and beliefs from my own experiences and inform what I think about it. That's causing me to have some kind of an emotional response. How do we, though, what would you guys say? Where can we step in to kind of gain some more control over this entire process? Have you guys ever identified a situation in which you had some kind of belief or thought something about what was going on and then found out later you were completely wrong? Have you guys ever had an
That's happened
emotional?
to me many times.
Yes. Who said that?
Something will get lost or I'll
Yeah, Matt.
misplace something and I'll
Oh my
immediately go
God.
to the negative thought that somebody stole it, man.
Dude, you just hit my
And
shit immediately.
and then lo and behold, I put it in the back seat of my car and forgotten. And always for some reason, these things that you think get stolen always come up found. And you're like, dang, man, I owe that person an apology, thinking that they came in here and just took it. And how do I control that is a good question. I would love to hear the behavioral science behind this.
Anybody relate to that example?
Yeah, it's classic overthinking.
You think so, Mike?
Oh yeah, it's 100%. You sit there and you divulge into, you start thinking, had I said this, had I said that, should I have done this, should I have done that? And then it ends up working yourself up to a frenzy.
So during period, and I know it may seem strange to say like something like Matt is talking about would cause the threat and the fear sections of our brain to light up, but that is absolutely what happens. I'm not even kidding you. When you lose something and you feel stressed, your amygdala and your limbic system starts to be activated. Same thing when you're agitated or angry. I know some of the stuff that can activate that system can feel very trivial, but once it is activated, it kind of hooks us, right? And we're kind of in the throes of the effects of it. So I'm feeling that stress and I'm feeling that heat. When this happens, the brain sort of naturally retreats into what is called the default mode network, the DMN. And if you guys ever, take any cognitive or neurological classes or courses, you'll hear that often referred to. The DMN it's not just one part of the brain. It is again the default mode network. So it's a network of a few different regions of the brain that start to kind of work together for threat
No.
response. And it's the part of the brain that Michael is referring to when he says we start to just overthink. The default mode network turns all of my thoughts inward. It becomes a self-referential ruminative cycle, is what it's called, where I start simply thinking about me, my situation, my problems, basically anything connected to me and what's threatening me or what's stressing me out, right? And I ruminate on it. I turn it over and I can't stop thinking about it. And when we talk about being in our heads too much, we're talking about, our default mode network is just active and we're having trouble shutting it off. So as we said, I can be driving my car, I can be navigating through life, going to work, living my day, and I can, seemingly be interacting with people and engaged, but a lot of you guys can probably relate to I can be doing all that stuff and still be kind of driving myself crazy up here with that endless kind of loop of thoughts and that thing that won't shut up, right? That default mode network takes over and it is highly regulated by cues and emotional responses. So when I am and it makes sense, right? If my brain feels threatened and it's turning over a situation, it's looking for possible threats, it's looking for possible solutions, it's hyper kind of responsive to having emotions based on what's happening because it's feeling like this is a threatening situation. And so all of these things serve us well when it comes to like, survival 10,000 years ago when these systems in the brain started forming, but they don't necessarily serve us well day to day in modern life. And so that DMN, when we start getting into that self-referential kind of stuck in my head thinking, I have to realize that I'm making myself even more vulnerable to these emotional responses and these sort of ingrained habits that I have learned to give me some kind of solution or relief from stress and anxiety. Because when my brain is in threat mode, right? It starts to really push me towards the things that it sees as a solution or some kind of relief. So the biggest thing that we can do, and I almost feel like I'm harping on the same thing over and over again, but the default mode network is essentially the opposite of what we would call somebody who's mindful or somebody who's being self-aware. That default mode network are those automatic processes where we just get stuck in our head and we're just kind of letting it guide us. The first thing that we can do is become aware that we are getting stuck in our default mode network and take ourselves out of it. Now, you guys may not realize, but some of the most effective tactics for disrupting the flow of thoughts from the DMN are actually physiological cues. So, who has ever seen in a movie, like there's two characters talking, and one character is spinning out because he's hyper stressed and he's working himself into a frenzy and he won't shut the fuck up. What does the second character do?
Slap him.
Slap him in the face, right? Get yourself together. What the hell is going on with you, right? There's a reason that is actually kind of a known response to when somebody cannot get themselves out of a stress loop, is because physiological responses will do it. It'll kind of snap the brain back to being aware of our physical bodies, get us out of the mental loop. And so, I mean, you don't have to have somebody slap you across the face. You can go into your bathroom, fill up the sink with cold water, and dunk your face in it. I know that sounds crazy, but if you are really having trouble and you're spinning out and you're working yourself into a panic attack, that's something that's actually been proven that can get you out of it and calm the system down. Literally, just holding an ice cube will do it to you because it forces your brain to focus on the physical, what's actually happening in this moment, and it takes you out of that DMN. Trying to think of some others. Anybody else have any kind of like trick that they do when they're kind of freaking out or spinning out and they can't get rid of a thought? A lot of times writing it down will really be helpful because when I'm spinning out in my head, it's almost like everything is just moving at a million miles an hour. When I can get it down on paper and actually see it, it somehow it seems a little less overwhelming and it kind of helps me get my arms around it. So these are just some basic ideas for if you're really having trouble to kind of get yourself to that place of calm to where we can then maybe focus more on the root issues of the problem. You cannot teach a drowning person how to swim, right? We need to get to a place of calm first to where we can then work on the solution that's going to help us with this problem and hopefully to kind of deal with similar problems in the future. So if you're spinning out, first thing you got to do is calm down. But let's look at those ABCs, right? What is the activating event? Sometimes I will get, like we said last week, I'll get kind of 1,000 steps ahead of myself and I'll start to almost lose sight of what the original problem was because I have gone down a rabbit hole of my own thinking. So I knew Josh probably thought he was going to get off the hook, but he's going to be our example for every group for the next year, probably. Josh gave that example, right, of the probation officer asking him to pee in the cup more often. And Josh started to have an emotional response to all kinds of things that were maybe somewhat attached to that actual activating event, but were not the objective reality of what had actually happened. So, first of all, let's take a look at the activating event and let's make sure that our response is proportional emotionally to what's actually going on. Because my beliefs about that activating event can take over so quickly, and to me, they can become the reality that I will actually lose sight of what the objective reality is. So again, if we're having trouble and we're really freaking out, let's remind ourselves what is the actual issue rather than what is my head screaming at me about all the potential implications and disasters that could follow because of the issue. So there we're kind of going more towards B. And I would argue that when we focus on our beliefs, when we look at the that middle part, the B aspect of it, that is where we can make the most progress and I would say change our perspective the most about any given situation. Because our beliefs, which is again what we're responding to, our beliefs are most oftentimes kind of where the flawed thinking is coming into play. So, can anybody in here kind of tell me maybe some patterns of maybe some goofy thinking that they've noticed in themselves over the years? Maybe some ways, actually, Matt had a really good example earlier, right? And something that I can 100% relate to. It's so ridiculous how I will, I'll lose my goddamn phone charger. Maybe that's not good. But, maybe in that situation, I don't think somebody came into my house and stole my phone charger. But I have absolutely like lost something, right? And I have become convinced, holy shit, like some motherfucker has been watching my every move, and right when I wasn't looking, came in and took that thing from me, right? Even more so than that for me, I have a wonderful wife who is very clean and very organized. Okay. And I am not necessarily that kind of guy. And I also live in a house with a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. And our house is pretty messy, right? So constantly my wife and mom is going around and like organizing. And I do feel like, and she mentions it, right? And I pick up every day with her and stuff, right? I feel kind of bad for how much time she spends doing this, but also she's a little bit overboard with it. But a lot of times, if I will misplace something myself, I start to get pissed in my mind at my wife because I have convinced myself that she came behind me and she was cleaning up after me, right? And she put something in a drawer somewhere that I really need at this exact moment. That's not, I really have no actual evidence of that, right? But a lot of times that becomes my very strongly held belief about a situation. Anybody else have an example about I mean, look, we're all kind of crazy. We all have our foibles, right? Anybody notice some kind of pattern of thinking that they've engaged in that's kind of goofy like that?
Every day.
I have something similar. When I got married, my wife moved in with me, and I knew where everything was. And that was the end of that.
Yeah,
She
for one
changed it,
day.
and that was law. And, so I hired a detective. No, never mind.
Who else? Anybody notice something like that?
I think like sometimes I have ADHD, so like I forget a lot of stuff. So like if I forget something, immediately I'll be like, "You are the worst person that has ever lived. You don't deserve anything," you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then I'm like, "Okay, obviously that's not true. Calm down."
yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's pretty, kind of wild to say that that's your first thought, you know?
Yeah.
And if you go with that, I mean, and you go with it consistently, what that can do to you. Who else? Anybody else ever get mad at somebody in traffic before? Obviously,
What?
that's all of us probably, right?
My at my boss at work, like sometimes I be feeling like she be because I got two bosses at work. I work at a little factory, like assembly line. I be feeling like one of my bosses be picking me out a lot of times. You know what I'm saying? Like she's always looking for me.
Mm-hmm.
I be like, I done pulled her to the side. I'm like, you got a thing for me or something? Like, like are you out for me? Like you got one out for me or something like that? Like working constantly, take my breaks sometime, still looking for me.
No, fight her. Stop, bro. Stop.
I used to be taking it personal, and then she just told me, no, she's just hard on me because she wants me to do good. But I still be feeling like, what the heck?
Now, let me ask you, Mr. Rivera, have you ever lost a job or been fired before?
You know,
I have maybe, I don't know, 30, 40, maybe 50 times, so no shame here, trust me.
yeah.
Yeah,
I never lose no job. I've quit the only job I had, but before that, I really never had a 9 to 5.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
So that I'm on house arrest and probation and stuff, it's kind of mandatory.
Yes. So for you, having the job is inherently tied to your freedom, right? We were talking about this a little bit last week. So anything that could potentially threaten you having the job, your brain is, without you even realizing, kind of subconsciously reading that as a potential threat to your freedom.
Right.
We have all, so I have, like I said, lost many a job in my life. What that does to me is anytime my boss texts me or emails me and says, "Hey, need to get on the phone with you in 15 minutes," right? What starts immediately going through my head? Holy
Getting fired.
shit, my kids are about to be homeless. That's like literally, that's where I start to go to. My stomach drops, dude, because I guess what? I've been fired many a time before. Maybe you've not been fired before, Josine, but maybe you've had an authority figure look at you kind of the wrong way and you've experienced negative consequences as a result. Your brain remembers that and it registers that threat and it's hyperactive, kind of sensitive to anything that may represent a similar threat that's happening to you, right? And so,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely the thought, because I ain't gonna lie, they definitely don't mind firing people. But when you're not giving them no reason to do it, that's the weird part.
and that's where you need to, where you kind of have to have the prefrontal cortex take over, where you need to have that logical part of the brain step in and start to challenge your beliefs about the situation. Because you can start to tell yourself, right? It's kind of crazy, but I don't have to believe everything that I think. And I can start to kind of, there's almost like different parts of my brain, different parts of the conversation that I can have. Or I can have the logical part, try to calm down the emotional part a little bit. I'm having this emotional reaction. It's a natural automatic response that my limbic system causes to happen within me. It does not mean that it's real and that I have to go with it. And so I can kind of say to myself, look, I'm feeling kind of threatened because there's a lot at stake if I lose this job. My brain is telling me something right now that probably is not real. And what can I control about the situation? Just keep doing my job. Be nice, polite, and respectful, right? And that's how we can start to kind of have the logical part of the brain step in. And do you guys see how that kind of brings down the temperature of the emotional response? Because ultimately, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring down the heat and the intensity of that emotional response so we can make better choices with the rational part of our mind. So, and I'm not saying that you would do this, Josine, but I think we can all see how if you just run with the emotions, right, and you start to develop a resentment against this woman, and then your interactions start to go poorly, and
Yeah,
it just that cycle gets worse and worse. Maybe it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where she convinces herself you're a jerk, and she does fire you because you had it in your mind that was going to happen all along, right?
yeah, exactly. You're right. You're right about that because that's kind of how it went. It's basically how it went because I was like, dang, maybe I'm overthinking it. As time progressed, she seen that I did keep working good, and she started falling back. She actually started helping me,
Okay.
but at first, she's really I was really. It was just making me think when you was asking me that question because at first, when I started this job, I really didn't even want to keep it because of that reason.
Yeah.
But now I like the job, I enjoy it, and I'm working it.
So, I mean, that's a situation, and like, you got through it, obviously. I mean, we all need help, but you didn't need someone to tell you how to get through that situation. But think about if you had gone the other way, right? I mean, knowing what you know now, obviously you're glad that you kept the job and you're in the situation you're in.
Yeah,
And we can all see how the emotional response would have put him in a worse situation. And
definitely.
all of us do this constantly all the time. Anybody else have an example like thank you for that, Mr. Rivera was perfect example. Anybody
Thank you.
else have an example like that, something going on in their own life that's causing them some stress? Ain't nobody's just me, Josine, and Josh. We're the only ones experiencing stress. That's pretty damn good. I think y'all are gonna make it. So, what we hit on and what we have hit on in a couple of these conversations are what we call in cognitive behavioral therapy, what we call cognitive distortions. Uh, One of the cognitive distortions that I heard in that last example was mind reading. Anybody ever engage in mind reading? Anybody ever form a belief about what someone else is thinking and then have a response to that belief, even though I don't think any of us are actually mind readers?
No, my wife does it all the
I do
time.
that too often.
I do it a lot.
I did
Yeah.
something worse than that.
What is worse than that?
Well, I seen this person, and I always, I talk to everybody. I got a gift of gab, and I was seeing this person at the grocery store, and I'm like, "Oh, how many months you pregnant?" And
Oh,
Oh shit.
Jesus
no,
Christ.
they weren't pregnant at all.
What the
That,
fuck?
that's the worst form of mind reading. That's
wow.
called mind reading. I don't even know what that is.
My
That's called
God.
stupidity.
If you could have read her mind after you asked that question, you would have probably heard some expletives. Good Lord in heaven. But yeah, mind reading. I mean, this is a pretty common one. This is actually something, I mean, it's just kind of a natural thing that human beings do. And, I'm not going to lie, a lot of times it comes in handy. And obviously, if it's my wife's birthday and it comes to be the end of the day and she says, hey, by the way, you haven't even said happy birthday. And I look at her and she's looking a little annoyed. It's probably safe for me to read the mind maybe in some situations, right? I could probably say, oh, she might be a little upset that I forgot about her birthday. I'm not saying that this is something that is never legitimate, if my child is showing signs of being afraid, I don't have to normally confirm with her, hey, are you feeling fear? Like a lot of times I'm going to pick her up and soothe her, right? There's times when we can tell what other people are experiencing, but this can lead us into trouble because we can sometimes rely on it. It can convince us that it's always a useful tool, and it's not always a useful tool. Sometimes it can really put us into trouble. So again, there's almost nothing that there's no magic pill that I can give you guys or secret words that I can whisper in your ears to make this process like just happen for you. And Matt was talking about how do we actually start to incorporate this stuff. The only way that I know is to try to make yourself aware of it as frequently as possible, and doing stuff like giving yourself visual cues, taking notes, Um, Coming to groups, going to meetings, obviously, doing reading, unrelated topics. But the only way that I know to really put this stuff into practice is to make myself aware of it as often as I can. So then when a situation actually happens, then it will occur to me, oh, I need to put this into practice. But that mind reading one is a big one because we all do it all the time. And again, there are some times when I can rely on it, but when I need to really look at it is when I'm having some kind of an emotional response connected to it. I need to, again, really evaluate, is this actually what's happening, right? Or is this more my beliefs about what's happening? And
I
if I
think that's
can identify, I'm actually having some beliefs and I'm actually engaging in some mind reading that may or may not be true. Again, it's going to help me to turn down the emotional intensity of the situation and maybe navigate things a little bit better. Was somebody trying to hop in? I thought I heard somebody.
yeah, I think it has something to do with maybe lack of self-confidence, insecurity, you know, to prejudge someone else's emotions. My wife gives me that often. She says I'm too sensitive, you know, and
Yeah.
I'll misconstrue what someone else's intentions or feelings were without really giving it much thought. You know?
Yeah. It's an interesting point, Jim. Yeah. Because, mind reading, I guess, doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing. I mean, I could, if I walked into every room, let's say every room that I walk into, I think, boy, everybody here just fucking loves me. I can see it on their faces. I mean, that's pretty crazy too, right?
That might be a little overkill, I think.
But I think that's what some politicians feel. Maybe, but there I am, mind reading. There is actually, I mean, we all know about paranoia, right? We know about it because it's such a harmful thing for people to have paranoid delusions. But I don't know if you guys are aware, there actually is something called pronoia. It's the opposite of paranoia. And pronoia is the psychological phenomenon that occurs when people are convinced there's some grand conspiracy out there to help them or to aid them, which can also be um, it sounds more positive than paranoia, but it oftentimes takes the shape of like, I am Jesus and everybody here is put here to help me on my mission. Like it's also like not necessarily a great thing. But there is pronoia, which is the opposite of paranoia. And yeah, I mean, mind reading is going to be probably a more negative thing if I have negative self-worth, negative self-esteem. I would say that for me, when I have most engaged in negative mind reading is when I had the most legitimate reason to, I would say. I'm not really going to be super worried about my wife. Um, if my wife looks at me, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, does she think I'm cheating on her? If I'm not cheating on her, right? But if I'm constantly acting like a piece of shit, and then she gives me a look, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, does she know about all that stuff that I'm doing? Like, I will just say that paranoia for me has tended to follow giving people reasons to not look at me in the best way, if that makes sense. But yeah, Mr. Rivera, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I was saying in a sober mind versus the addictive mind or like user mind, it's a big difference too. And I remember like being like under the influence of different things, and the paranoia and those feelings be
Yes.
way different. Versus being sober and clean, like you really appreciate being sober, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because those drugs are stuff or substances that make you feel better, of course, when you're on it,
Yeah.
when you're using it, being when you're high, whatever, drunk. But once you come down or you're detoxing, you're living, going through straight hell.
100%. Yeah. And the way you
Everything is,
speak, I can tell that you've been through it.
yeah,
As we have said in here many times, there is a price to pay for every high. There is a come down for every come up. And, if I put a bunch of alcohol into my system for a while, it's going to do its thing. It's going to bring down my anxiety. The GABA is going to act as a neurosuppressant. It's going to slow down my thinking and give me that feeling of calm or relaxation. But there's a rebound effect when my brain tries to get back to its normal level of operation. And what the brain does is it jacks up the other side of the coin. And so I'm going to have a rebound effect where I feel more anxiety, I feel more fear, I feel more stress. And that's where people get into the loop where then what do I do for that quick relief? I put more alcohol in the system. The rebound effect gets worse, and I just continue on in the cycle. But absolutely, I mean, we all know, right? If we all probably have kind of had the image in our mind of the crackhead looking out the blinds at the seedy motel, right? Thinking the cops are about to roll up or whatever the hell. Like, absolutely, drugs and alcohol activate the fear and stress and threat systems in our brain. And it's just a fact that we are going to probably be more prone to paranoia or feeling threatened or unsafe as a result. And think about what this really does to our relationships, guys, because it twists up our relationships in ways that we don't realize until we get clean and sober for a while. To where I start to realize, I did not realize until I was a couple years clean and sober how I had an unhealthy, almost childlike dependence on my parents as a grown man. I did not realize until I got clean and sober how there was always tension in my relationship with my dad as a result of me constantly lying and fucking up and taking advantage of them. Like there was just all kinds of things. I didn't realize how I constantly had sort of a fear association with my parents because I was always hiding something from them, and they were kind of always sort of the biggest threat to my drinking and my drugging for a long time. So I don't even realize how these things are twisting up my relationships with people until I can get clean and sober and have that toxic influence out of there. But that mind reading thing is a big one. And again, the more that I'm not doing right, the more I'm gonna feel like people are looking at me and thinking he's not doing right. But be aware of where that mind reading is coming in and dictating your emotional responses. And think about how it's really not fair to other people. I will have an emotional response to somebody based on thoughts that I've ascribed to them that maybe they never even had in the first place. It's just kind of crazy. Another one is catastrophizing. I'm going to run through a couple of these real quick because we're winding down in the hour. Catastrophizing is, going back to Josh's example. In my mind, take something and I go to what the worst possible outcome of that trigger could be. And then I start to almost operate as if that worst possible outcome is going to be what happens. Catastrophizing is a natural thing because again, our brain is looking for where potential threats are and what can I do about them. It's a natural, healthy response, but it doesn't always serve us well. And if I can be aware of when I am not actually responding to what's happening, I'm responding to my beliefs about this worst out case scenario coming true. That's catastrophizing, and it's something that does not actually reflect reality. Generalization, overgeneralization. I take one instance of something happening. I assume that's going to be what happens forever. Think about also, guys, how this comes into. We've not necessarily just been talking about substances this entire conversation, but think about if we're talking about relapses, how this kind of applies. If the overgeneralization thing, if I have relapsed in the past, and I've relapsed any time that I've gotten 6 months clean and sober, I start to sort of form this belief in my mind. Well, you know what? Three separate times I've gotten to 6 months and I've relapsed. That's just what's going to happen. That's how I am, and that's what's going to continue to happen every single time. I can start to set myself up for failure based on overgeneralizing like that. So be aware of, maybe, yes, you encountered a situation before similar to what you're encountering now, and something negative happened like a trauma response for the brain is going to remember that threat and make you hyper aware that the potential for that to be repeated exists in any situation that reminds you of it in the past, right? That's what a trauma response is for the brain. I was in war and I heard gunshots and my friend died. Therefore, anything that sounds similar to a gunshot, right? My brain is going to naturally bring that association to mind to keep me safe from that threat. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true, right? Fireworks, having that threat response on the 4th of July causes people anxiety and agony needlessly, but it's a very strong emotional response that people have. Be aware of, especially in a situation in which something intensely negative has happened to you in the past. If you're in a situation now that's reminding you of that, you may be overgeneralizing for an understandable reason because your brain wants to avoid that outcome that you've encountered previously. But overgeneralization is not reality. Just because something happened one way in the past does not mean that's gonna be the outcome every time in the future. And then I would say emotional reasoning probably be the most important for me to cover here in this last minute. Just because you feel a certain way does not make that true, right? I feel like I am never going to be able to get finished with all of the stuff that I have on my plate at work today. I am treating that feeling as if it is reality. It's not. I feel like I'm 10 years behind financially because all I did was drink and drug and spend time in and out of incarceration while other people were working jobs and getting ahead, right? So I feel like I'm behind. That's bullshit. Behind what? You're exactly where you need to be. There's no freaking, milestones and guidelines for what makes a successful human at this age. But those feelings can cause those emotions to make me return to you, sort of make me feel like a failure, to start informing those negative feelings of self-worth based on shit that's not even true. So those are just some common ones that it may pay for you guys to be aware of. But again, awareness is going to be the number one key when it comes to stopping these automatic ABC responses that happen within us. And so I promise next week we'll move on to a different topic. But thank you guys for paying attention to that kind of basic rundown of cognitive behavioral therapy when it comes to stress and fear responses. That is what we kind of went over the last couple of weeks. So, any questions or any kind of house